Hello. Hello, Charles.
Good evening, Graham. Good evening, Anthony. Sunday night, Graham, and it's been quite a week.
Yeah, I saw a couple of good films, yeah. Is that what
So
you're referring to?
obviously that was the main topic of conversation this week. And if you were trying to
Yeah.
watch anything else on television, it would be largely impossible, of course.
Oh,
And
well, they've sort of gone back to normal now. I mean, they've covered it a lot, but I had
well,
this terrible fear there's going to be like 12 days of no television except documentaries on the Queen.
or the band Queen, exactly. And no,
Well,
so I
they
mean,
haven't appeared
on
at
the
all.
other
It's
hand,
been,
McConey and his good chum can't do their show together. They had to do separate shows this weekend. Weren't
yeah,
allowed
I
to.
heard that, yeah.
What earth's that about?
Well, I heard what McConaughey was playing, and it was generally more downbeat stuff of a quite
Yeah,
wide variety, and
you're
I
allowed
quite
to
enjoyed
play.
it. But I didn't see how it was anyway related to the passing of the Queen, though.
No,
I didn't see the relevance really.
it's
But I didn't mind it. It was all right.
Ratcliffe and McConey. Yes, so Ratcliffe did shows on both days, I think, and McConey on one. And yeah, so they weren't allowed to be in the studio together, and obviously conversations just can't be allowed. And
Well, well, yeah. I mean, on the one hand, you could have rugby union matches. On the other hand, you couldn't have football matches. So it's it's typical of crazy Britain.
well, it is, and the Smith song has finally come true all these years later. It's only taken a very, very long time.
Well, the Queen is dead,
Hmm.
but he does sing "It's Lonely on a Limb," doesn't he, in that song?
He does. Uh,
So he was ambivalent, wasn't he,
but this is
in
very
every way?
absolutely. And because we remember, of course, God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols, what is the very short track by a certain Manchester band that maybe people slightly overlook?
Oh, good grief! This is a good question. I'm not sure I'm going to get this, Charles.
It's
You're
at
gonna
the
have to help me.
start of side two. It's really short.
Oh, it's the Stone Roses.
It
Oh
is the
yes,
Stone
that one
Roses.
where Queen Elizabeth gets her head chopped off in a sound
Elizabeth,
effect.
Elizabeth, my dear,
Mm,
to the
mm.
tune of Scarborough Fair.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that sort of thing. I'm not a huge royalist, but I'm not really a
At the
Republican
end of that
anarchist either.
song, at the end of that song, it's either the sound of a gun being fired or it's the sound of a guitar. Just,
Yeah,
I wonder which it
yeah.
is.
I don't know. Perhaps we're reading this too much.
I've
Perhaps it's
always
just a really
wondered,
short song and a
and
joke at the start of side two.
I've never read a definitive explanation as to quite what that noise is at the end of that very
Mm,
short song.
mm. But I
So
tell you
anyway,
what, I could do
Graham,
without. I could tell you what I do without.
yes,
I've got huge respect for the Queen, and it was a very sad moment her
mm.
passing. But I don't want to see any more trumpets or ceremonial airmen or people with silly hats on or reading from protocols from the 1600s
Or
again.
what about your fellow Scots, Graham, the archers,
The bell.
who with their bows and arrows this morning at midday? I'm I was
Well,
completely unaware
I
of them.
didn't actually. I mean, I watched quite a bit of the coverage
Mm,
because it's quite an amazing spectacle, the funeral cortege from Balmoral to Edinburgh via Dundee
yeah.
and Perth. But I missed the archers. Did they actually fire their bows?
They seem to hold them in a quiver rather than actually
Okay.
getting overexcited with them. But
Hmm.
anyway, so we I don't think we're being disrespectful still in discussing the arts and at this time, and the arts world no doubt will find its own way of paying tribute in its own ways. And
I do think we should have done this separately though, because I think to do it together is some sort of insult to
uh,
Her Majesty.
we've clearly risked things, and anything other than a grave tone obviously is not appropriate at this. But I am strange enough. I am wearing a black tie today, so you know I've
Hmm.
gone that far.
Yeah.
Now, Graham, you've been to a place that I went to not that long ago in North Wales, in
Hmm.
Snowdonia, which is most associated, I guess, with The Prisoner and the cult television series.
The 1960s.
And I don't even think that series quite prepares you for what you come across when you get to Portmeirion.
Well, I was actually there 30 years ago for 2 hours
Mm.
on a drab, wet, and dark day with my great friend Nick Wood,
Yeah.
because we loved the series of Prisoner starring Patrick McGoohan about the spy who retires, then gets rendered into this cozy but imprisoning village. And it was filmed at Portmeirion, obviously, North Wales. And
Mm.
at the time, there wasn't much of a tourist industry around Portmeirion. It was just becoming famous again, partly because of the TV series.
Yeah.
But when I went back at the weekend on Friday, it was incredible. I could not believe what the place was like. It was quite mind blowing.
Did you find it a little bit though, like when we went to the Epcot Centre, etc., in the Disney World, that it's become Disneyfied?
No, I didn't think it did actually. I think it's such a strange, unique, and brilliantly designed place. It could survive anything. It's innate weirdness and the brilliant balance of all the various buildings and statues and
Mm.
columns and curios and follies and knickknacks could withstand anything. It was just amazing.
It's. Do you like the use of gold?
I liked all the colours. It's quite bright. I mean, it
It
reminded me a
is.
little bit of Venice because no matter where you went in the village, you always end up at a place that looked the same as the place before.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, you change direction and you end up in exactly the same looking place as before. But unlike Venice, where you get lost in Venice, every street's the same, all the squares are the same. But in Venice, you can go wander on for hours and end up not
Mm.
having a clue where you
Mm.
are or how you get back to where you came from.
Yeah.
The great thing about Sir Clough Williams-Ellis's Portmeirion, which he designed between 1926 and the late 1970s, 50 years of
Mm.
money and
Mm.
designs and passion for it. The great thing about it is that he's designed it so that there's lots of entrance and exits and paths to
Yes.
everywhere, and they all lead back to where you want to be. It's
Yes.
it's almost like Zen-like in its equilibrium. It's weird, but it's not. There's nothing sinister about it. Unlike Venice, which is obviously a much bigger place and more famous as well, and older. But Venice is something sinister about Venice. But
Every film
Port
that's made
Merion is,
in,
is delightful.
yeah, no comedies get made in Venice, Graham.
I'm not surprised.
If they're not all called Death in Venice, they're all about a death in Venice,
Mm, exactly, yeah.
including
But
The
I thought
Merchant
it's
of
very
Venice.
it's very quintessentially British though. I mean, it looks mainly Mediterranean, although it's a real mishmash of
It's
stuff. It's like
Italianate is the is how the
yeah,
architecture is described. Italianate.
it doesn't cover though because a lot of it's pseudo Greco-Roman. There's
Yes.
bits of Norwegian, bits of British. He's just basically designed the place to look attractive and to give you lots of surprises and hidden delights to give you pleasure and to make you feel something. It's not Disneyfied at all, but it
No.
is benign and it is entertaining.
Did you do the beautiful walk through the woodland to the sea?
Of course.
Because I think that's the bit that it's not that big, isn't Portmeirion? So, and people might think, is that it? So it is well worth taking those. And there are again multiple routes you can take on the walk to the hidden bit, as they say, the actual most beautiful sea view that there is there. Utterly
Mm-mm.
stunning. And that I think is the great joy as well as for all the Italian architecture and those extraordinary colours. When you then see the landscape that he's placed it in, it's even more beautiful.
Well, he picked a landscape deliberately. It had a history behind it already as
Mm.
some place where aristocrats of the past centuries had gone.
Mm.
But it wasn't at the time. There wasn't much there, and the first thing he built was the hotel, which I stayed in. And in the 20s and 30s, the hotel was famous. I mean, you had people like George Bernard Shaw and
Yeah.
H.G. Wells.
Mm.
Noel Coward wrote Blithe's Spirit, staying in the hotel at Portmeirion.
Did he?
So,
Huh.
so yes, it was a place. It instantly got its own history as soon as he built the hotel, which is the first thing he did. And the
Mm.
great American architect, the sort of modernist minimalist Frank Lloyd Wright, he visited Portmeirion in Portmeirion in 1956.
Mm.
And despite the fact that there's nothing in common between the architecture of Portmeirion and the sort of great buildings that Frank Lloyd Wright was building in America,
Yeah.
despite that, he really enjoyed it because
Yeah.
it's impossible to be impressed. The most amazing thing is that wherever you are in the village, it looks like it's quite big and there's some distance involved.
Mm.
But if you actually walk to any other point that you're looking at, discover that nothing's more than 50 yards away. It's
No.
so he's picked the size of buildings and statues and everything else to always create a sense of perspective and distance, even though there is no distance. You can walk around the whole thing in 10 minutes.
You
But
can.
if you stand to admire the piazza, for example, from just outside the piazza and look up to the Green Dome building,
Yes.
this long sweep upwards. Well, it isn't a long sweep, it's actually a very short sweep. But he builds everything in proportion to everything else. So it creates false distances the whole time. It's a
Yes.
really clever construction. And the other great thing is that some of the buildings are actually just facades. There's some buildings where if you
Yes.
go to the side of it, there's nothing behind it. There's
No.
some buildings that look like they're substantial buildings, which are actually only, about 4 foot deep. But then there's other buildings which actually are proper buildings. Then there's some buildings with doors where the doors don't open. Other buildings have got doors, but if you open the door, there's nothing inside. Then other buildings have doors where you open the door and there is a room just big enough for a small art gallery. So it's really playful as well, and really there's so many hidden things. He planted features to obscure other features, so that every time you move, you get a different view. And the great thing about Portmeirion is that any time you move, you get a different view than you had before. So it's literally got a million views you could possibly enjoy. And the other thing is that as the daylight changes or seasons change,
Yes.
you get different views again. So even though it's tiny, and all you can do when you're there is like have a coffee or a beer or a meal and wander around.
Mm.
If you're that way inclined, you could spend hours, if not days, just testing out a huge number of different views and viewpoints you can enjoy. It's quite incredible.
How do you reflect on how it was used then in The Prisoner? Whether actually when one goes around, it's rather a different experience to the one that Patrick McGoohan was having.
That's the bizarre thing as well. The way the Prison was a very intelligent program with great scripts and packed with ideas way beyond, a spy series on ITV
Yes.
like it was designed to be. But the interesting thing is that the common theme, some of the common themes in The Prisoner about perspectives on people and how you can't trust how things look and how things are hidden and some things are revealed and some things are hidden and you can't trust what you're seeing. Well, that's in the script as an underlying theme quite often.
Exactly.
Well, that's what the village is like. The design of Portmeirion, which was done well before Patrick McGoohan had the idea of doing a TV series in the mid-1960s, that's there already because the village itself, the architecture, is full of hidden delights. It's full of false visuals and changing viewpoints. So the Prisoner Prisoner as a TV series works on every single level we could possibly work on, and the village itself is a piece of architecture and village construction and mini town planning works on every conceivable level as well. So the two things married together brilliantly, and you can enjoy the whole thing without knowing The Prisoner, or you can go there like quite a lot of people do, and you can get all geeky and start investigating which buildings appeared in which episode. But when we were leaving, because the Prisoner Appreciation Society does annual conventions there, has done for about 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And in this series, the form of transport that gets you around the village, which in real life you don't need any form of transport because it's so small, everything's completely walkable.
Yeah.
Was a mini moke, which in the 60s was like a really cool flatbed sort of mini car with no roof.
Yeah.
Quite a cool thing. It also appeared in the Dave Clark Prize film, Catch If You Can, directed by John Boorman.
Oh, yes.
Well, when we were leaving the village on Saturday afternoon, what came streaming down the hill past us? About 20 mini mokes in a row by clearly fans of the TV series who were heading for Portmeirion.
Yeah.
So it's like the Prisoner TV series never really ended, even though the last episode was broadcast in 1968.
Mm. I suppose what I was wondering, Graham, is because if one sees it as a kind of welcome to the pleasure dome for us now, that wasn't the experience McGowan was going through. Things were deceiving him. I take the point about, you get different perspectives as you look round, but in his case, it was that it was restrictive and it actually made you feel imprisoned. So it had the opposite effect to what I think it's intended to have on the rest of us.
Yeah, I get that, but what the series was saying was that the village is only a metaphor for the real world anyway. And
Yes.
that whether you can leave the village or not isn't the point. The point is that the democracy in the village is a sham.
Yeah.
It's all run by the top. It's all hierarchical.
Yeah.
You're free to do what you want as long as it's to certain things that the people in charge allow you to do.
Mm.
And the series was basically saying that even if you can escape physically from the village, you can't escape that system. And that's
No.
a system we're still, it's a quite crude argument in some ways.
Mm.
The system we're still living by. And the thing about Portmeirion as a village, if you don't care about the Prisoner TV series, nothing about it, is when
Mm.
you're there because you've been driving through North Wales, magnificent scenery in Snowdonia National Park,
Yeah.
great mountain ranges, but the towns and villages around there, there's quite a few nondescript,
Yes. True.
Scottish-looking small towns villages,
Yeah.
also like grey pebble dash buildings, just like you get in
Yes.
Scotland, and it's all like quite, the towns and villages can be quite uninspiring.
Yeah. I
Then you
agree.
go down a hill through trees for less than a mile,
Mm.
and suddenly you're in the village, you're in
Mm.
Portmeirion,
Mm.
and it's like you've left Britain and gone abroad in the space of a mile. So there's something. It's an escape from reality. You wouldn't want to live in Portmeirion all the time.
No. No.
Though
No. No.
you can rent some of the houses in there to live in if you want, because it's basically not real. I mean, it is real, but you're not really part of Britain. It's like you've opted out of the real world to enjoy this fake world where you're always on holiday.
Just as a matter of interest, does the hotel play on the prisoner element at all, or
Not
is it
very
just
much,
no?
but I think because the family of Clough Ellis is still involved
Yes.
in the running of everything, in the management and the ownership.
Mm.
They give the prisoner enough input into the experience of Portmeirion to reflect its importance and the fact there's a lot of fans still.
Mm.
But they don't go overboard. But they haven't turned it into a prisoner theme park. You
No.
can enjoy the place without knowing anything about the prisoner,
I agree.
and you can stay in the hotel and never notice that the prisoner's involved whatsoever. So it's been, as a tourist place, which it very much is now, much more than so than 30 years ago when I went on a
Yeah,
wet dull
absolutely,
day.
Graham.
It's
It is.
massively tourified,
Mm.
touristified, but it's been done with a lot of taste, and
Yeah.
the staff are amazingly friendly. It is like you've entered a different world. It's just
Mm.
not British. It's like this is really nice, and the staff are friendly and helpful. Everybody's happy. It is like you've crossed an invisible boundary into a nicer world.
Yeah. They just as an addendum to not an addendum, just as an additional point, for those who are going to Portmeirion, it is worth also going to Clough Ellis's his own house. I don't know if you went there, Graham, but
No, it's actually Sir Clough William-Ellis. I keep on getting this wrong.
it is
Yeah.
indeed. It's Sir Clough Williams-Ellis, and again, obviously the house in Snowdonia, and I think from memory it's called Place
Oh,
Brondon,
yeah.
and again, it has beauty. Its gardens are beautiful. The design is beautiful. The choice of colors to signify. It has a choice of color that runs through all the paintwork and the wrought iron work as well. And again, that sense of perspective he brings there. It's well worth visiting as well. That combining the two,
Yeah.
Not just going to Portmeirion, but seeing actually where he lived as well, because that gives you another sense of what a witty visual eye that he had.
Well, what also I thought about Portmeirion, I compared it to the great American wealthy publisher William Randolph Hearst
Yeah,
and his Hearst Castle on the California coast that you and me
which
both
we
went to
went to.
in 1991.
Yeah,
And it's different in the sense that Hearst had a lot more money
yeah,
than Sir Clough William-Ellis. But he too spent 50 years putting his castle together and, you know, trawling the world for bits of furniture and features that he's going to put in his castle, just like Sir Clough Williams-Ellis did.
Yeah.
But the end result of Hearst Castle is a monument to his own ego.
Yeah.
And it's quite a sort of like controlling place. He designed it so he was in charge and could manipulate all these special guests like Charlie Chaplin and Roosevelt and Churchill and stuff. Whereas Sir Clough Williams-Ellis being British, it isn't a testament to his own ego whatsoever.
No.
He's trying to please people as well as himself, and he's not trying to control anybody.
No, absolutely. So Portmeirion, I think, is open year round. I think it is, Graham. Pretty certain that's the case.
Yeah, they have slight off seasons. So I heard when I was there that in January, local people get to come and stay in the village if they want to at cheap rates, because obviously in January tourism drops quite substantially. I think January to March is probably quite a quiet period, but the rest of the year it was absolutely mobbed. It was so busy. They must be making quite a lot of money.
Absolutely. So Portmeirion, we both thoroughly recommend going there, and not just if you're a fan of The Prisoner. Now, Graham, I think it's time for an interruption. I just get that feeling.
Well, yeah, did I mention at Leeds Festival about the signers who are at work? I can't remember now. Did I mention that?
No.
Well, when the sound desk at Leeds Festival, the main stage, is like a massive platform in the middle of the hill.
Yeah.
Just up the hill in the middle. But they've always, in recent years, well, quite a long time, I think, people who are disabled or have some sort of physical issue get to sit there in chairs on the platform with a fantastic view of the main stage in full safety, which is a great thing to do. But for the first time, this is the first time I've noticed this. They might be doing it for years. But they had two signers who were standing in front of the people on the platform in their chairs, who were signing the words to every single song that was done by any band on the main stage. So I found myself watching the signers, because obviously when you do sign language, it's a very physical act. And it was like they were performing. And in some ways, the signers were actually better performers than the lead singers and the bands on stage.
That's, I mean, it's interesting because not every band, and that's a bit of stereotyping about rock singers, you can't always hear what they're saying, but that is sometimes a problem with singing. So that's makes it even more of an achievement if signers are able to actually denote every word that's being sung.
Well, they seem to do. I mean, I don't actually do sign language myself, but they were quite rock and roll. It was quite hard to not watch them rather than watching the bands.
I mean, I've been to theatre shows where I've watched the signers in action as much as I've watched the stage. They do become compulsive to watch. They are a show in themselves, and obviously I realise the reason why they're there. But actually, they do add to it. Unquestionably, they add to a show because they are so physically expressive. That's what you note about it. It is so physically expressive.
Yeah, well, they're unlike us, you and me, who are using words. They're creating something 3D. I mean, when they move their hand, it's a real hand making a real motion, whereas we're just spouting words.
And you see the emotion in that as well. If you watch the physicality of the hands, speed sometimes at which they move, sometimes the repetition with which something is done, it is a show in itself. And I'm not in any way dismissing why it's so good that actually we have these things at theatre shows, sign language, and we have everyone being made welcome to theatres, and rightly that is exactly as it should be. But it's interesting that actually, I hadn't thought about it for concerts before, and there you are. Glad that it's happening.
Yeah, it was great. Loved it.
Graham, can I talk about someone who I know you think I'm his love child?
I know it's coming.
I promise not to dwell on it too long, but nevertheless, every time that Alan Ayckbourn has a major new play, it is always in Scarborough. And obviously, his 86th play was done in a combination of at Bowness and then also at Esk Valley Theatre at Glaisdale. But 87th one is much more where you would expect it to be happening. That's at the Stephen Joseph Theatre, running till October the 1st. This play is called Family Album.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a play that has 3 settings on the same stage. And 1952, when a couple move in and it's their first home. 1992, when their daughter Sandra is holding a birthday party for her 10-year-old daughter, Alison. And the third story, 2022, when Alison and her partner are going to be moving out. She inherited the house, did Alison, and they mainly used a conservatory that's added, and they didn't particularly use the room that's actually being featured in throughout, which is the sitting room. But the way the play works is that you've got the 3 time settings, and they're denoted simply by LED lighting round the edge of the stage in a different color to signify which age you're in at any time. So it's such a simple device. So the other thing that Ayckbourn does within it is that the mother will suddenly be there from an earlier story as a presence within a play of the next story. Won't say anything, just will be there, just as a hovering presence. And I think it's partly looking
sounds an interesting concept.
It is. So it's partly looking at home, what home means to us. It's partly looking at work, because by the third story, both Alison and her partner are working, BBC researcher, the partner, and in the case of Ali, she is a CGI graphic designer. In the first play, very much just the traditional housewife's role, and doing all the cleaning as well, polishing things, and the husband coming in every so often. And in the second play, the husband is playing away from home, and the character Sandra is utterly exhausted trying to run everything and ends up mental breakdown, etc. So that's looking at the role, therefore, of women within that structure and within that world. So there's 3 elements there that Ayckbourn is looking at. And I've said many a time that his men have a lot to answer for in his plays, and that is certainly the case again. What's interesting in the interview I did with him is that actually in the next couple of plays, he's going to be looking at the impact of previous generations on the next generation of men.
What you mean? He's got another couple of plays coming up?
Yeah, already written.
He's a play factory. He's 83 years old.
So in lockdown,
he's written more than one play a year since he was born.
He wrote 5 plays in lockdown alone. So that tells you how prolific he is. So many a play has looked at the impact of men on the women, and it can be by the third play. It's a physical absence. There is no man in that room at all. In the second play, he's absent, but he exists. The husband exists, but he's playing away from home. And in the first play, the husband's off playing golf, and he's there, but it's rather like the husband figure in Brief Encounter. And
is there anything peculiarly Yorkshire or Northern about this?
It's not Northern. They are very much middle class. Other than the last play, there are 2 in the last play. It's 2 women, and the woman who has come into the life of Ali is referred to. She has a Northern accent. She's from Heckman-Dwike, which is, I think, partly because Alan just liked the word Heckman-Dwike, so he chose that as a place in the north to feature this time.
Great name.
But it's largely very much middle class families and southern families, which again, I mean, that's not uncommon in Alan plays as well. But nevertheless, it would still be universal. I don't think one would say that they're middle class London families or suburban families, particularly London. It could equally be, it could be Manchester, whatever. So I don't think that's of great significance within it. Why I loved it as ever is because it may have familiar tropes within it, as I've mentioned, but it still finds a way to play with time. It finds a way to play with a performance space, and it still adds further to his extraordinary range of characters that Alan has had over the years. It is also ultimately a play which is anyone who used to dismiss him as a middle-class farceur, this is a play that, not for the first time, takes him towards Ibsen, takes him towards Chekhov, and there's a lot of darkness and bleakness and sadness, and more than sadness to it in the play.
So
and yet, of course, it's funny.
The three segments of time, do they happen on the stage at the same time? Is there a geographical
the way that it works
eras on stage?
They will someone will leave a room and someone else will come in, and what's denoting as to which year it is, whether it's 52, 92, or
I imagine there'd be three separate parts to the stage, and each year would have their own part, and then the light would go on and it would switch instantly from one year to the next year, and then it would chop and change between the different eras. It doesn't do it at a time.
Other than the presence of the female figure from an earlier generation sometimes being in the room at the same time, almost like a ghostly presence. It's very much, I mean, so the Sandra character, played by Frances Marshall from York, she does that her whole story is done without anyone else in that story. She performs every line in her story.
So how long does that bit last in that segment?
The way it works is that so the way it works is it's a standard Ayckbourn length, so we're talking more than 2 hours. But it's not that you do one play and then the next play and then the next play. They go backwards and forwards between the plays. But so simply by a sound effect, and Alan, who worked as a sound designer for the BBC in earlier days, has done the sound design for this. So there's a lot of sound effects of opening doors, or in the case of Frances's character Sandra, not being able to open the French doors, struggling with them. Again, sound effects to denote that. But is it like 5 minutes of like 1952, then 5 minutes of 2022? Well, it can be like that. I mean, actually, it starts off with rather two longer sequences. It obviously starts. The initial story is 1952. It does start with it, and it does conclude with the 2022 story, only because that's logical to do that. But within both halves of of what we're watching, it ebbs and flows between the three timelines. It takes quite a while to establish the first timeline story, and then you're into the second, and then towards the back end of the first half, we're introduced to the modern story. But
so how many people in the cast? What size is the cast?
So you've got two characters in the first play, one character in the second of the settings, 1992, and two in the last. So there's five people in the play in all. I mean, part of the joy of it is seeing these different worlds being created with the same furniture. The furniture does not change, so the three generations keep the same furniture.
Really?
Yeah,
that's a bit odd.
But if you look at some families that never sort of move very much, or in the second story,
if one person runs the household who grows old in the same house. Which a lot of people in their 70s and 80s now, that is the case. You're right. They will have the same furniture they had like in the 1940s or 1950s quite easily. But I mean, if it's anybody younger, they won't.
What Ayckbourn had was that in the second story, 1992, there were the new way into the house was to go through the French windows. In the third play, it makes a mention in the third setting, 2022, that they'd built a conservatory. So that's how he gets a sense of how things have changed, and yet they had retained this furniture throughout. Right at the start of the play, it involves the furniture delivery men and the woman of the house deciding where she wants everything to be placed, husband coming in and saying no, it should go. So you see instantly the two different characters and the way they play against each other, and so the furniture captures perfectly how the characters are as well. So the placing of the furniture represents the two different characters.
It sounds good, but apart from showing men to be bad, what sort of points does it make?
It's the impact of one generation on the next generation. That's what it's looking at. Which we're well aware that is the case, and we can all talk about how we were influenced by what our parents did or said to us. Unquestionably, and that very strongly is there in the story, and the consequences of that.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.